Today I'll show you guys how to upgrade the BMW E60 M5 brake calipers. For the fronts, I will be changing them to a 4-pot from an M850, and the rears I will be changing them to a 2-pot from an M3 F80. I will also be upgrading the stainless steel lines, and this combination will give you a better feel and modulation during braking. There are a couple of things you're going to need before we get started. You'll have to source the front brake calipers somewhere and the rear caliper somewhere. You will also need some spacers to fit in while you're installing the calipers. This will center the calipers onto your rotors. The ones I've used for the fronts are from Belmetrics. Info in the description below. You'll need 5mm in the front and 2.5mm in the rear. For brake pads, I brought Brembo pads from Rock Auto. I've also included new brake caliper hardware. So these are the holding pins and the clips. You'll also need brake sensors. The OEMs will not fit the brakes themselves, the new brakes. You'll need brake sensors from an F series, and I put that information in the below. Of course, some torque wrenches, breaker bars, and a various bunch of different sockets. You'll definitely need a wooden block and a hammer. Pressure bleeder is also a plus. First thing we're going to do is make sure the car is jacked up on all fours, and we're going to take the wheels off. We're going to work on the fronts by taking off the front calipers and rotors. Here I'm having a little bit of problem taking off the front rotor because of my spacer has been sort of stuck to the hub. I got a piece of wood and I just whacked the rotor a little bit, and then that created some space between the rotor and the spacer, and I was able to pry it off with a screwdriver afterwards. I am replacing the front rotors with new Zimmerman rotors. To get the pads to fit, I had to cut a section off the bottom of the OEM pads in order to fit onto the rotors properly. This is my setup. I had a grinder with a chop saw setup that I bought off of Amazon, and I sort of just clamped it to my bench, and I was able to do this to all 4 pads, and it fit perfectly. There is a pretty thick metal section at the end, so it took quite a bit longer. So after taking off the rear rotors and the rear caliper, and then measuring the minimum thickness, noticed that there was plenty of life left in the rear rotor, so I didn't replace them. Instead, I bought a honing tool off of Amazon, which just sort of knocks off a layer of the old pad material, so that your new pads have something new to grab onto. Here's me just using the tool. It's pretty easy to do. Sort of just squares the rotor's face. And I also use this opportunity to clean the hub of the rotor. So we just installed the rotors and calipers in reverse order, add in the new brake lines, and then we bleed the system. Here's the final shot of what they look like.